When my only child told me, "Find someplace else to fade out. You're dead weight now," I folded sweaters with hands that used to braid her hair. I packed like the dutiful mother I'd trained myself to be. 3 days later, I sat in a wood-paneled office off Dearborn, staring at a wall of certificates while a quiet storm gathered in my chest. My name is Lila Carter. 2 months ago, I was a South Side wife of 42 years, pouring coffee for a husband who teased me for serving love in a mug. Then Isaiah's heart stopped at 72, and the world tipped. Tasha, my daughter with a diamond laugh and a blade tucked behind it, swooped in wearing a silk blouse the color of a lie. "Mama, you can't handle that big house on Magnolia Terrace. Stairs'll swallow you. Memories ain't good for your blood pressure." She had always been Isaiah's star, shining bright enough to blind. When she married Marcus Wright, the banker with cufflinks that winked, the adoration doubled. I cooked, kept the lights on, made life smooth. They called it love. It felt like labor. I didn't know then that Isaiah had seen further than I ever did. Please like and subscribe to my channel. After the funeral casseroles cooled and folks stopped calling, Tasha began arriving with glossy brochures, amenities for active seniors, independent living. Marcus smiled like a man discussing market trends. "You'd thrive at Willow Harbor, Ms. Lila. Chair yoga. Bingo. No gutters to clean. Translation: no mother to manage, no inheritance to share." The blow landed on a Tuesday that smelled like old rain. Tasha showed up unannounced with Marcus and 2 suitcases the color of hospital walls. "We've made a decision," she said, standing in my doorway like a sheriff. "Marcus's team moved uptown. We need to be closer. Magnolia's perfect for us." I blinked. "This is my home." Her expression slipped, and I glimpsed steel. "Actually, Mama, Daddy left everything to me. The house. The accounts. All of it. I've been letting you stay out of love, but it's time you transition." 42 years of marriage collapsed into 3 words: just the wife. Isaiah's hand on my back at my mama's funeral. His flowers every anniversary. His laugh on Sunday mornings. All of it pushed aside by Tasha's cool voice. "Find a place to land, Mama. You're not necessary anymore." I packed 2 suitcases and a shoebox of photographs. Marcus carried them like they were outgrown clothes. Lakeview Lodge charged $49 a night and smelled like spilled coffee. The towels were the color of stubborn clouds. Tasha pressed $200 in my hand like she was tipping housekeeping. "This'll cover you while you get sorted," she said, eyes already on her phone. "Marcus will transfer something once we finish Daddy's paperwork." My something. My husband. My life. I sat on a bed that sighed with other people's weight and tried to understand how I'd gone from wife to stray in a single afternoon. Grief swelled, then cracked, and a sharp, precise thought slipped through. Isaiah had always been meticulous. Shoe trees in his Oxfords. Receipts in labeled envelopes. He showed me his will years ago, patient as a Sunday school teacher. That will didn't say my daughter inherited everything. I used the motel's sputtering Wi-Fi to look up his lawyer, Amos Grant, the same gentleman who'd handled our Magnolia deed. The bus ate the last of my cash and rattled through a city that no longer felt like mine. Mr. Grant stood when I entered. Silver hair, soft suit, eyes that understood funerals. "Ms. Carter, I've been calling. Tasha told me you were traveling." Traveling. My daughter had been busy building a story. "Mr. Grant," I said, "I need to read my husband's will. The real one." He frowned. "Tasha didn't give you a copy?" "We held a reading. She said you were too distraught to attend, that she'd take care of your bequest." The room tilted. "There was a reading," I whispered. Mr. Grant drew a thick file, fingers sure. Isaiah updated everything 6 months before he passed. He laid the paper down like a blessing and began. "I, Isaiah Eli Carter, being of sound mind." My husband's careful signature sat steady at the bottom. Mr. Grant read each clause in that courtroom voice lawyers get. "To my beloved wife, Lila, I leave our home at 1124 Magnolia Terrace with all contents. In addition, I bequeath her 80% of all liquid and investment assets, totaling approximately $46 million. 46, not 43, not 33. Numbers with edges. Air thinned. Mr. Grant continued, voice tightening. To my daughter, Natasha Cartwright, I leave $9.2 million in trust, to be released beginning on her 47th birthday, contingent upon her respectful treatment of her mother after my passing. Contingent upon her treatment. Isaiah had written a fence around me. I stared at the page. Tasha told me I got nothing. She moved into my home. She gave me cash like I was a bellhop. My throat burned. Mr. Grant's anger arrived quiet and lethal. Then, Miss Carter, your daughter committed fraud. And we're going to fix it. First, Mr. Grant said, we call the police. Then the banks. Then Tasha. His assistant moved like a metronome, and a detective with braids and a badge appeared, as if summoned by my heartbeat. Detective Brielle Hammond examined copies Tasha had waved in my face, documents with the right fonts, the wrong soul. These aren't amateur. She tapped a notary seal. Someone with connections brewed this. Marcus. I asked.
Possibly, she said.
Or someone he pays to think like a criminal. Within hours, accounts froze like lake water in January. Cards linked to what Tasha believed were her new pools of money stopped working mid-swipe. Utilities she'd rushed to claim paused, waiting for proof. The house that raised my child held its breath. At 3:52 p.m., my phone shivered. Tasha. Mama? There's some bank glitch. Daddy's accounts. Hello, baby, I said, each word a step on solid ground. I'm sitting with Mr. Grant. Remember him? Your father's attorney? The one you told I was too distraught to attend his reading. Silence hushed us both. Tasha, I said softly. You lied. You forged. You put your mama in a motel that rents by the week. Mama, you're confused.
People are manipulating you.
Money can be complicated. Respect is simple, I said. And according to your father's pen, you just lost $9 million by forgetting it. Detective Hammond's team moved fast. Bank officers called. Signatures were compared. Warnings were issued. By evening, a warrant waited like a door already open. At 8:15 p.m., officers found Tasha at Aubaird's 9, laughing with Marcus and a couple in suits. When the cuffs clicked, she flared, demanded a lawyer, a favor, a miracle. Marcus's jaw flexed, then froze when a detective asked about his firm's document services. They picked him up at his glass office the next morning. The printers that made glossy prospectuses had also birthed a counterfeit will. I slept in my bed on Magnolia that night, Isaiah's side still dented by absence. Tasha's cologne clung to the curtains like the ghost of a choice. I gathered her clothes and cosmetics and set them on the porch in clear bags, labeled with painter's tape. Mr. Grant called just after lunch. Bail's at $60,000. Her accounts are ice, so she'll need an angel. And Marcus. $250. Judge didn't care for the word conspiracy. I stared at Isaiah's old study, wood dark as molasses, trophies of a life I thought I knew. For the first time the room belonged to me. I want light, I told Mr. Grant. Rip the drapes. Paint the walls. And I'm turning his den into an art studio. A woman can reclaim a room and call it resurrection. The news came knocking before the paint dried. Ms. Carter, Channel 12. You are the face of a story too many elders live in silence. Would you talk with us? The reporter's voice was soft. The camera behind her was hungry. I said I'd think. She said it might help somebody's mama. I poured a glass of the fancy wine Marcus sent last Christmas and let the tart cherry taste bloom on my tongue, a toast to my own breath. At 7:06 a.m., my doorbell rang like Judgment Day. Tasha stood there, last night's clothes rumpled, mascara in tributaries. She looked 5 years older and 10 pounds lighter. I opened the door, but left the chain. Mama, please. Her voice was paper-thin. We need to talk. We talked, I said. You suggested I die cheaply. I made mistakes, she whispered. But I'm still your daughter. I studied her. The girl who once slept with her head in my lap during thunderstorms. The woman who forged my future. Are you? I asked. Because daughters don't shove their mothers into the dark to make room for a walk-in closet. I was protecting you, she said. You don't understand money. I understand dignity, I said. And you tested positive for none. Your father, I told her, saw this coming. Tasha's breath caught like a snagged thread. I held up my phone and pressed play. Isaiah's voice spilled into the morning, steady, measured, full of Sunday and steel. Baby girl, if you're hearing this, it means I misjudged your kindness. I hoped I was wrong. I wanted the woman your mama raised to stand taller than the world's hunger. Your mama carried this family on her back. She gave up classrooms and canvas for casseroles and calendars. If you dishonor her, you won't touch a dime. Tasha sank on the steps, sobbing. Not the pretty tears she used like jewelry, but messy ones that made her human. He hated me, she gasped. No, I said. He loved you enough to build a fence around me and pray you'd never hit it. What happens now? She asked, eyes raw. Now you face the law, I said. And I decide whether to sit with Channel 12 and say your name into the evening news. Mama, the kids. Marcus's career. Please. I'm thinking about them, I said. I'm thinking about what we teach, by what we tolerate. She looked at me like she didn't recognize the woman behind my eyes. I didn't blame her. I was new to me, too. 3 days later, Marcus's mother arrived. Pearls, posture, perfume like old money. Evelyn Wright glided into my living room as if she'd always owned the furniture. Miss Carter, she said, crossing one ankle over the other with surgical precision. We're all upset. Marcus made poor choices, but dragging our family through court is excessive. We can resolve this like ladies. Ladies don't forge wills, I said. Marcus followed Tasha's lead. She smiled. You know how love confuses men. Your son runs numbers for a living, I said. He knew exactly which ones he needed. She brightened. Let's talk solution. We're prepared to make you whole. $5 million for your inconvenience. You drop charges. Everyone moves on. I almost laughed. 5 for 46. Be realistic, she said softly, eyes sharpening. You never managed money at this scale. Trials invite scrutiny. How would you feel if the public learned certain things about Isaiah's business practices? There it was, a carefully folded threat laid on my coffee table like a place card. What things? I asked. The kind of things, she said, rising, that recalibrate a widow's memory. She left without touching a cushion. I called Mr. Grant. They're going to smear Isaiah. He sighed. Then we get ahead of it. But Lila, make sure you're ready for everything that means. Isaiah kept records like hymns, date, amount, signature, stamp. I opened his cabinets, and the past marched out in binders. Receipts, contracts, emails printed and filed by color. I followed the paper like breadcrumbs and found a forest. Shell companies seeded with air. Consulting fees climbing in neat stair steps. Transfers timed to somebody else's headlines. I asked Mr. Grant for a private investigator. He sent a woman who looked like she could see heat. Nyla Pierce, sharp eyes, sharper patience. She photographed, traced, charted. Miss Carter, she said finally, you're not going to like this. She slid a summary across Isaiah's desk. He was washing money. 10, 12 years at least. Real funds. Fake services. The kind of clients who don't sign their legal last names. My ribs tightened, as if the room had lost oxygen. No, I whispered. He was stubborn, sure. Old-fashioned. Not that. The patterns don't lie, Nyla said gently. What happens to the money? I asked. If the feds touch it, she said. Seized. House may be spared if you're credible as an innocent spouse. But the accounts? Gone. I pressed my palms to the desk until the wood printed its grain on my skin. Evelyn's smugness. Marcus's confidence. They hadn't just counted dollars, they'd counted leverage. I stared at Isaiah's photo. His eyes were kind and far away. What else don't I know about the man I married? My phone rang. Tasha. Mama, listen to me. There's more to Daddy's money than you think. I'm listening, I said, voice flat as a countertop. Marcus's lawyers talked to some people. The FBI is interested. They're willing to deal. You keep the house and $5 million in clean assets. Marcus gets immunity in exchange for information. My charges go away. I looked around Isaiah's study, at the leather chair worn to his shape, at the print of a river he loved but rarely visited. Blood money is still blood, even when it buys beautiful frames. You want me to bless your salvation and call it family. I want you to be practical, she said, exhaustion scraping her tone. Otherwise, we all lose everything. Maybe worse. I let silence sit between us until it grew edges. I need time.
We don't have it, she said.
The meeting's tomorrow morning. After she hung up, night pooled in the corners of my house. I could taste copper. Fear or fury. I couldn't tell. I called Nyla Pierce. How fast can you get me into a federal office? If they're going to hear a story about Isaiah Carter, they're going to hear it from me. Fast enough, she said. Wear something you can breathe in. And bring your spine. Special Agent Naomi Brooks wore a suit the color of storms and eyes that measured. We sat in Mr. Grant's conference room as a recorder blinked red like a heartbeat. Miss Carter, she said, you understand you may have benefited from criminal proceeds. I understand truth, I said. I'm tired of being handled. I told her everything. Isaiah's neat crimes, Tasha's messy ones, Marcus's printers, Evelyn's perfume and threat, the deal. The $5 million that smelled like a bribe dipped in bleach. Agent Brooks listened without leaking a single emotion, then tapped her pen. Would you wear a wire? Would it help? It would help us establish intent, she said. Yours and theirs. 3 hours later, medical tape itched at my chest and a recorder hummed against my sternum. Magnolia's old floorboards whispered under my feet as I set out glasses and a pitcher of water. The house felt awake.
So did I.
Tasha and Marcus arrived at 8 o'clock sharp, dressed in apology and arrogance. Marcus placed a briefcase on my table like a communion tray. Miss Carter, he began, we've arranged an outcome that protects everyone. Define protection, I said. You keep the house. $5 million in assets we can certify as clean. In exchange, we all stop digging. He smiled. I thought of shovels. And graves. What about the rest? I asked. Marcus laced his fingers. Untouchable. Contaminated. You don't want that heat. And you? I said to Tasha. What do you get besides clean fingernails? Closure, she whispered. Mama, please. Marcus. I said, eyes on him though the wire was for both. When did you discover Isaiah's side business? Before the wedding? After the baby shower? Or only when you went shopping through my life and tripped on a wire transfer? He smoothed his tie. That's not relevant. It is if you're an accessory, I said. And it is if you're just unlucky. Tasha shot him a warning look. He ignored it. Miss Carter, let's not turn this into an argument. We're trying to help you. Help feels different, I said. It doesn't come with forged documents. I let the quiet stretch, then glanced toward the kitchen where shadows moved like purpose. You can come in now, I said. Agent Brooks and 2 others stepped from the hallway as if the walls had birthed them. Marcus reached for the briefcase. An agent's hand landed on it first. Marcus Wright and Natasha Cartwright, Agent Brooks said, voice clean as a bell. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, elder exploitation, and attempted extortion of a federal witness. Tasha's mouth opened. No sound came out. Sometimes truth is louder than any scream. As the cuffs kissed their wrists, Marcus couldn't help himself. You don't understand, he hissed at me. Powerful people don't like headlights. Agent Brooks paused. Mr. Wright, you warning her or threatening a witness? Stating facts, he said, but his voice trembled, and the room held the memory. After they were escorted out, Agent Brooks sat again, unspooled a folder, and turned the world upside down a second time. Miss Carter, Isaiah wasn't just laundering. He was informing. Deep cover. She watched my face as if I might fracture. I gripped the armrest. Say that again. For 12 years, he fed us names, patterns, account routes. We allowed certain flows to continue to protect the operation and gather higher targets. He was our most effective source against a cluster of Midwestern crews. The funds you inherited include payments for his cooperation. They are lawful. The breath I'd been holding since Evelyn's visit left like a ghost. I closed my eyes and saw Isaiah's steady hands, the way he counted out tithe money on Saturday nights. He didn't tell me. He couldn't, she said. Sealed operation. He died before we could close. Because of what your daughter and son-in-law set in motion, we were able to confirm you didn't know. We execute warrants tomorrow. And the dangerous people? I asked. Busy, she said. Very. 6 months later, sun pooled across countertops I chose, on cabinets that open without sighing. My art studio, once Isaiah's den, once his secrets, smelled like turpentine and lavender. I brewed coffee for 2. Dr. Simone Pierce, Nyla's sister and my financial advisor, arrived with a folder thick enough to be a novel. Morning, Ms. Lila, she said. Your foundation's thriving. The scholarship committee cried over 3 applications, which is how I know we picked right. Investment steady. Risk balanced. You're good. The Lila Carter Foundation for Elder Justice had already paid for lawyers in 5 cases where children tried to turn parents into margins. We funded workshops in church basements, barbershops, and community centers, places where folks look each other in the eye. Netflix called, Simone added. They're greenlighting the limited series. Proceeds to the foundation like you wanted. I looked at my reflection in the studio's big window. Short hair, soft jawline, eyes that had learned to say no. Letters from Tasha were stacked in a drawer I didn't open anymore. I'd read 3. They had the shape of apologies and the flavor of strategy. Her lawyer asked about supervised visits. Simone said carefully. When they're grown, I said. When they can choose without her shadow. Not before. Simone nodded, wrote it down. Boundaries are a kind of prayer. Evelyn tried again, with a different perfume. It's time to heal, she said, seated on the edge of my new sofa, like forgiveness was an accessory. Prison changed Natasha. Marcus found God. God can find him anywhere, I said. Including a cell. You're cruel, she breathed. I'm awake, I said. When she left, I walked my house like a museum curator, touching frames I'd hung with my own hands. The kitchen sang in brass and light. The studio glittered with unfinished canvases. In Isaiah's old closet, I kept 2 suits in plastic as if they were hymns. Love and betrayal can exist in the same garment bag. I know that now. On my easel waited a self-portrait I'd been avoiding. The woman in it stood in sun-sharp as applause. Her mouth wasn't smiling, but her eyes were unafraid. I dipped a brush and drew in a thin gold line at the edge of her shoulder. Armor you could mistake for jewelry if you weren't paying attention. My phone pinged. Channel 12 confirming the documentary dates. A church on 79th requesting a workshop. A woman in Baton Rouge asking, how do I leave when the house is my name, but not my courage? I typed back, start with your name. The courage comes when you hear it out loud. At night, Magnolia feels like a living thing, floorboards whispering Isaiah's footsteps, radiator clicking like a metronome. I sit at the kitchen table and write checks. A legal aid clinic, a program that teaches grandmothers how to spot forged signatures, a scholarship for older women going back to school because someone finally told them they were allowed. Sometimes I think about forgiveness like a recipe. Measure, stir, simmer. Folks expect it to taste sweet. Sometimes it tastes like iron. I don't owe Tasha my forgetting. What I owe her is the truth about what she taught me. I am not water to be carried. I am the well. Do you regret it? Simone asked once. The arrests, the news, the way I shut our door and locked it from the inside. Regret? I said, considering the word like a dress I might try on and return. I regret the years I spent mistaking silence for peace. I regret the ways I taught my daughter that love meant I'd disappear on command. The kettle whistled. I poured, added lemon. Outside, A kid biked past, singing. Inside, my phone vibrated with another letter notification from the prison email system. I turned it face down. Some habits are holy. Tomorrow I'll stand in a church basement with fluorescent lights humming blessing and talk to a room full of mothers and aunties and men who raise their nieces. I'll tell them what paperwork looks like when it loves you, how to lock a credit report, how to say, no, baby, and mean it. If Tasha ever knocks again, she'll find a different house and a different woman. She'll need more than tears and legal stationery. She'll need a life turned inside out, a humility that doesn't perform for cameras, a truth that bleeds and doesn't complain about the stain. I step onto the porch. Evening folds soft over Magnolia Terrace. The trees I planted sway like choir robes. Somewhere, Agent Brooks is closing a case that began in my living room. Somewhere, Nyla is following a wire through another maze. Somewhere, a woman just put her key into a door she paid for and decided to keep. The best revenge isn't a headline or a sentence pronounced from a bench. It's this: light pooling on hardwood, paint under my nails, my name on the deed, my voice carrying across a room. Thank you for listening. If you've got a story like mine, tell it. We're building a world where mothers don't have to vanish to be loved. Please drop a comment, and subscribe for more stories like